Understanding psychological obedience is crucial. It helps us understand some of the worst moments in human history. It also helps us understand ourselves. The drive to obey is strong, but it can also make us vulnerable to manipulation. In the early 1960s, a psychologist named Stanley Milgram set out to explore obedience to authority. His experiment at Yale University became one of the most famous in psychology. Participants were told they were part of a study on memory and learning. They were ordinary men from various backgrounds. The real participant was always the teacher. The actor was the learner. The learner was strapped into a chair with electrodes. The teacher sat in front of a shock generator. The experimenter assured the teacher the shocks were painful but not harmful. The stage was set. The experiment was ready to begin. As the experiment began, the teacher started asking questions. The learner in the next room would provide answers. Many of them were deliberately wrong. With each incorrect answer, the teacher was instructed to deliver a shock and to increase the voltage by 15 volts for each subsequent error. At first, the shocks were mild. The learner might grunt, but as the voltage increased, the learner's reactions became more dramatic. He would complain of pain. He would shout. He would bang on the wall. He would plead to be let out. The teachers found themselves in an increasingly difficult situation. They were ordinary people. They could hear the learner's distress. Many became visibly agitated. They sweated, they trembled, they stuttered, they bit their lips, they groaned. Some even broke into nervous laughter. They would turn to the experimenter, the man in the lab coat. They would question the procedure. They would express concern for the learner. The experimenter remained calm and firm. He had a series of standardized prods. These prods were delivered in a neutral, authoritative tone. The results of Milgram's experiment were shocking and deeply disturbing. Before the study, Milgram had surveyed psychiatrists, college students, and middle-class adults. He asked them how many participants they thought would go all the way to the maximum 450-volt shock. Most predicted that only a tiny fraction would, perhaps 1 or 2%. They believed that most people would refuse to obey, especially when the learner was clearly in pain. The reality was starkly different. In the initial version of the experiment, a staggering 65% of participants obeyed the experimenter. They went all the way to 450 volts. They continued to deliver shocks even when the learner was screaming in agony, even when he fell silent. These were not sadists. These were ordinary people. People like you and me. They were deeply distressed by what they were doing, but they did it anyway. The power of the situation and the presence of an